Jonathan Huberdeau and Jacob Trouba, two players with terrible contracts that the Calgary Flames and New York Rangers would like to trade respectively. But could the two players be traded for each other? Well, one NHL writer has proposed a blockbuster that would see the two players swap teams, and in this video we're going to delve into the reality of a trade like this happening. But before we get into that, I want to welcome you to Flames Digest. I'm Mark Griffith. If you're new around here and you love the Flames, make sure you subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the latest news, updates, reports, and rumors revolving around your Calgary Flames. We would love to welcome you to the Flames Digest family. And speaking of the Flames Digest family, I just want to say I really appreciate your guys' support lately. It's been so positive down in the comments, and it's just a great community we're building. I love each and every single one of you guys. Thank you so much. But let's get into a potential Trouba for Huberdeau trade. And there will be some logistics later in this video to try and make this somewhat plausible, because let's face it, a Jonathan Huberdeau trade on its own is hard enough to come up with. A Jacob Trouba trade on its own is hard enough to come up with, but both involved in the same trade is pretty ridiculous. And I will preface this by saying the article, the writer that I used, it is New York Rangers led. I wouldn't say it's completely biased, but it comes from a New York Rangers mind, not a Calgary Flames mind. So be prepared to not want to do this trade at all, because I will say from the beginning, no, this trade isn't good for the Calgary Flames. But still, very interesting to look at. So let's take a look at this. Rangers and Flames, exploring odds of blockbuster Huberdeau for Trouba trade. This one comes from Jesse Corville Lynch from the Hockey Writers. And without further ado, let's dive in. The Calgary Flames and New York Rangers have different goals this season. The Flames will be focused on continuing their rebuild as they head into what looks like to be a longer process that could extend over a few seasons, while the Rangers will be focused on contending for a Stanley Cup after coming up short last season. And not just last season, it's been a long time that this has been happening. Having one of, if not the best goaltenders in the NHL is a huge benefit for the Rangers, and they have the depth to make another deep playoff run this season. Jacob Trouba trade rumors ran rampant all summer, but nothing ever came to fruition. But the Rangers could revisit a Trouba trade next summer, and the Flames would make sense as trade partners. That's already pretty crazy, and that's kind of it for the introduction to the trade, because there's not an official this side gets this and this side gets this. It's just more so what it could look like. But like I said before, let's get into the logistics of a trade of this caliber, because already throwing those two names in are pretty crazy. And again, it makes more sense from the Rangers standpoint to trade away Trouba in order to contend and maybe get Huberdeau in as, kind of a replacement for some of the other guys. But let's get into this. The Flames have plenty of cap space and could take on bad contracts to add draft capital. A trade that could make sense is a massive blockbuster swap of two players on bad contracts. In theory, this deal sees Trouba heading to the Flames for Jonathan Huberdeau, with more draft picks, of course, heading back to the Flames' way, to retain 50% of his contract, unless the picks heading the other way are the next 5 years worth of first round picks. I don't think the Flames would ever retain 50% of Huberdeau's contract. I mean, already having 100% of it is bad enough, but even keeping 50 and getting rid of the player, I wouldn't do that. With half of Huberdeau's deal retained, his cap hit would drop to $5.25 million annually. However, Huberdeau's contract runs through 2031, so the Rangers might not want to take that on, but they would finally be adding a middle six forward who is in need of a career revamp and an improvement on Kaapo Kakko. Again, this is from a Rangers standpoint, and they make the case of, I don't know if the Rangers would want to pay $5.25 million to have Huberdeau, which honestly is fair enough. But the Flames also wouldn't want to still have $5.25 million per season until 2031, when the Flames will hopefully be a competitive team by then, if not a major contender by then. So why the heck would we still want to be paying this kind of contract? Already, to me, it doesn't make sense. These logistics aren't adding up unless like before, when I said, unless it includes the next 5 at least first round picks from the New York Rangers, or at least having younger players come in like a Lafreniere, maybe a Kaapo Kakko, and I'm not saying they are enough to retain 50% of Huberdeau's contract, but at that point, I mean, who else would we even want? Obviously, we would take Shesterkin. If not, give us Panarin, give us Zibanejad. But either way, I know I'm getting carried away with that. But either way, I don't like the sounds of this to begin with. Trouba has an $8 million cap hit, so the Rangers would be saving $2.75 million if the Flames took on the full contract, assuming they toss in a few draft picks to make this deal enticing for the Flames. Yeah, no kidding. It would have to be a lot of first round picks, like I said before. But even here, Trouba has $8 million, and Huberdeau, if we were keeping half, would be $5.25. That's over $13 million a season on two bums, pretty much. I don't like it. His physical play, talking about Trouba, and willingness to play a gritty game could be things they utilize as they give their young guys more opportunities. Trouba could also be someone these younger players try to model their game after. And that's another reason not to. We already have so many defensemen in the system. We don't need Trouba taking up another roster spot, more playing time from some of our younger guys who need to develop at the NHL level. Some fans around the NHL aren't happy with the way Trouba plays, considering he has a history of throwing some dirty hits. And we've seen that firsthand in the past couple of years. However, he isn't a consistently dirty player who goes out of his way to make those hits. He sets the tone with physical play, and Rangers fans have seen firsthand what kind of presence he brings to their blue line. The Flames haven't had someone dominate their blue line since Mark Giordano last played for them, so bringing in a player like Trouba seems like a no-brainer with their weakened defensive depth. Flames have a lot of depth right now. I don't know if Trouba is the guy to solve it. He also would not solve the problem of players wanting to play in Calgary. I don't think he'd want to be here. It was very well known he didn't want to be in Winnipeg. Ended up in New York, where I think he very much does want to be. So overall, it's just a terrible, terrible trade here. I don't like the idea of Trouba at all. But here, more logistics from the article. And again, I have to say, this is from the article. It's not from me. But Rangers save money. Flames add draft capital and leadership. The Flames have had a very interesting approach to their rebuild, while what has happened over the past few seasons might not have been the plan. They traded Tkachuk, and they lost the late Johnny Gaudreau to the Columbus Blue Jackets in free agency 2 seasons ago, just weeks apart. They then brought in Nazem Kadri to help push themselves toward becoming contenders, but their plan to retool and get back to the postseason failed. The Flames have added some strong pieces in Andrei Kuzmenko, Yegor Sharangovich, and Anthony Mantha heading into this season, but they don't have much depth and aren't a threat to win a Stanley Cup this season. A Trouba for Huberdeau swap means they would have to fully embrace a rebuild. Hanging on to that much money for that long just to have Huberdeau play against them is risky. Exactly. Thank you so much for finally saying it. But if the Rangers are willing to part with a few draft picks over a few seasons to encourage the trade, it's something the Flames should consider. And again, it would have to be more than just a few draft picks. It would have to be a boatload to retain that much salary and bring on Trouba's whole contract. The Rangers would be saving some money as they try to contend for their first Stanley Cup since 1994, and they would be bringing in a veteran forward with experience. He also has a chance to rebound alongside stronger teammates. At the end of the day, this would be a tough trade to pull off, but both teams would benefit in the short and long terms. I think the Rangers would benefit in the short term and not the long term. I don't think the Flames would benefit in the short term or the long term unless, again, there are a bunch of first round picks. But that's the trade. I already know what you guys will be saying in the comments, and trust me, I agree with you. But again, feel free to let me know, is this trade even possible? Probably not, but is it possible, and would you do it as a Flames fan? Now let's wrap up this video with the comment of the day, as we love to do, and we have another great question asked, just like yesterday's video. It was kind of a question from a commenter, someone from the Flames Digest family, of course. We have another great one here today. That's the same one from yesterday. This is the one I wanted to bring up. It comes from Kaz Dave, and he says, Flames Digest is rife with rumors and speculation. Yeah, no kidding. We cover them all, and this one was definitely another big trade rumor, but either way. But I would like to pose a speculation question. What do you think the Flames would look like today if Treliving had been replaced 3 years ago by Conroy? So if Conroy had taken over sooner, what would the Flames look like? Well, personally, it's such a hard question to answer, but I would think Conroy, knows NHL players a little bit better than Brad Treliving, since, obviously Tree didn't play in the league. So Craig Conroy, he knows the player standpoint, he knows what they're like, and I feel like he could have had more pull to make them gel as a unit and for players that wanted to stay. Or a better way to say that is he would have, gotten more out of the players who maybe didn't want to stay and could have maybe had more pull to make them stay. So it's very, very hard question to answer. I don't think the Huberdeau trade would have ever happened, even if we still lost Tkachuk. But either way, I think the Flames would still be a competitive team is my answer, but again, a very hard question to ask, but I want to know your guys' thoughts down in the comments below. Where do you think the Flames would be right now if Conroy had taken over sooner for Brad Treliving? Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe, like what you saw here today, and have a wonderful rest of your day.